Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our newest edition of Shots of Legends. Today we bring you this very special guest, Steve Kaplan, expert on comedy for more than 15 years. Steve worked as a consultant for Paramount, DreamWorks, Disney. He's a co-founder of Manhattan Punchline Theater. He's the creator of HBO New Writers Programs and HBO Workspace. So stay tuned to this conversation and don't forget to follow us on our social media. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here on Chat with Legends.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah. So we have here a couple of questions. I know you do. I know you do comedy. So I was going to ask you first. How do you describe the process of stealing a smile from the audience, from the people's face? How does it sound like?
I think, you know, there's a difference between comedy as an art form and stealing a smile. I mean, a baby can steal a smile, right? Yeah. You know, you get a baby and the baby's gurgling, and the baby smiles. I have a niece, and when she was very little, I would shake keys in front of her, and she would go, ah, ha, ha, ha. But could you take those keys and pitch that as a movie to Netflix? No. So it's more than just stealing a smile. It's about telling the truth about human beings in a way that reminds them who they are, and with all the flaws and faults and also all the good things about them, and it kind of reminds them that it's okay to be who they are. I think that's what the best comedy does. The best comedy acknowledges the fact that we're human beings, you know, in a kind of an unknown, sometimes scary universe, and we don't know where we came from and we don't know where we're going. And comedy says, me too, and it's okay. Yeah. That you know, you'll, as long as you connect with other people, you'll be okay. And I think that's, I mean, the big difference between drama and comedy is that drama helps us dream about what we could be, right? I mean, you watch a drama like Top Gun or Die Hard, you know, with big action heroes, or James Bond, and you go, boy, I wish I was that brave and that athletic. I wish, you know, I still had hair. So drama helps us dream about what we could be, but comedy helps us live with who we are. And it kind of brings us back to what we already know, but we might have forgotten.
But is there any secret to find the better words that because I realized that writing the certain words, you have that goal, the desire to change lives, to have that impact on the audience. How do you do? What is there any secret to find the better words to have that impact to the audience, on the audience? I mean,
well, I mean, there's a lot of different methods to creating comedy, to making people laugh. Just like there's a lot of different kinds of comedians. Some comedians just want to make you feel good, and then some comedians want you to think and want you to get as angry as they are. So it's not just one thing, but I think in general, the way you make an impact is by fooling the audience into thinking they're watching something silly and meaningless, but you've snuck in a lot of meaning into the message. It's what we call telling a lie to tell the truth. It's lying to tell the truth. So you have a movie, one of my favorite movies, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. It's a movie about a guy who's kind of a nasty guy, very, very arrogant, you know, full of himself. And he's a weatherman. And so he goes to Punxsutawney to see the groundhog, because the legend is if the groundhog sees its shadow, 6 more weeks of winter. Who knows if that's true? I don't know if that's true. But what happens is he goes to this small town and he gets stuck there because every day he wakes up, it's still Groundhog Day. So he's living the same day over and over again, and he realizes it. No one else realizes it. So it's kind of a silly or impossible situation, and you get a lot of comedy out of the fact that he knows what's going to happen and nobody else does. And sometimes he'll just say, somebody will say, boy, you can't make a day like this. And he says, yeah, you can. It just takes a lot of work, because he's not lying. He's just telling the truth from his point of view. But inside that comedy is a philosophical lesson about the meaning of life. If you had 1,000 lifetimes to live, what would you do with it? At first, the character that Bill Murray plays, he uses it for his own benefits. He steals money because he knows when the bank guards are going to be looking the wrong way. He goes to bed with all the girls in town because he can find out what they like and then come back the next day, and he can give them what they like, and they don't realize that he's just playing them. So at first he's just very selfish. And then there's this one girl because in most romantic comedies there's a girl. There's this one girl who he really likes, but she's not just going to go to bed with him just on the first date, because remember, it's just the same day every day. Yeah. And he gets very depressed, and he comes to the realization that since he's never going to get out of this time warp, what is he going to do with his life? And he decides that what he should do with his life is make things better for other people, which is why Groundhog Day has been adopted by many religions as a great religious story. So here's a comedy that was designed just to be a light summer comedy, and it really has a very deep meaning in it. And the best comedies have deep meanings in them, so that the way you affect an audience isn't just make them laugh, because you can't laugh for 90 minutes straight. You just can't. The best comedies make you laugh, make you care, and make you think. And they do that by combining elements of tragedy and comedy, because the best comedies have pain at the back of it. At the back of the best comedies, somebody's gone through a painful thing or is going through something painful. And isn't that what our lives are like? I mean, no matter, you look great today, you got that nice jacket on, you look happy, but who knows, maybe you stubbed your toe earlier today. Maybe somebody who you love doesn't love you back. So our lives are full of pain. That's the truth. And so comedy tells you, yeah, I know, but it's okay. It's okay, because there's still hope. Maybe tomorrow will be better. And I think that's another big aspect of the best comedy, is that it helps you remember that it's going to be okay.
You wrote you wrote the hidden tools of comedy. What are the biggest lessons we can find in the book? And can we find the meaning of doing comedy in that book? What can you tell us about the book?
Well, the book is designed to describe the techniques of writing and performing comedy that aren't taught in universities or acting classes, because most people, when they think about comedy, they think, well, you just have to be born funny. You're either funny or you're not. And I've had people professional comedians say, oh, you're either funny or you're not. And that's not true, because no one is born funny, right?
Yes.
I mean, when you're born, the doctor slaps you on the butt, when you're a little baby. You've never seen a baby turn around and go, a funny thing happened to me on the way through the fallopian tubes. Yeah, that's never happened. So comedy is learned. And so you can learn it by yourself, like you can learn how to do surgery by yourself, I guess, or you could go to a class.
Yeah.
You can teach painting, you can teach dancing, you can teach music, you can teach drama, you can teach Shakespeare. You can't teach comedy. Of course you can teach comedy. And one of the things the book offers is the idea that I think one of the most important things that the book offers is that there's a difference between funny and comic. Funny is whatever makes you laugh. You shake the keys at the baby laughs. That's funny to the baby. If somebody's a mean person, they see somebody slip and fall and hurt themselves, they might laugh at that, right?
Yeah.
So to them, that's funny. But comedy is the art of telling the truth about people. Comedy is the art of telling the truth, and the truth about most people is that we're not perfect. We're imperfect. In fact, we're built imperfectly. How do I know that? We all have an expiration date. We don't know what that date is.
Yeah.
But we all know that there is one. So we're not perfect. So the comedy's about an ordinary or less than ordinary guy or gal, man or woman, struggling against insurmountable odds. Maybe the insurmountable odd is your mortality, or maybe it's like, getting ready for a date. Whatever's insurmountable to you, without many of the required tools with which to win, yet never giving up hope. Never giving up hope. That's the essence of comedy.
Is there
in a movie where things are hopeless? That's a problem.
I was going to ask to ask you if is there a better age to write the best comedy? I mean, I'm comparing young people to the old ones. Is there a better age to write the perfect comedy?
Are you making an age comment about me? Are you saying that I'm too old?
No. No, I'm not saying that. Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that every age has their favorite comedy. When you grow up and you're in your teens or your 20s and you're laughing at something, that's the comedy that you like and that you always think of as the best comedy. But professional comedians all learn from each other. The comedy of Saturday Night Live, of Judd Apatow, 40-Year-Old Virgin, those all came about because they watched the Monty Python. Because back in the 60s and 70s, Monty Python was very original and unique. But Monty Python took all their stuff from the Goon Show, which was a radio show in London. And the Goon Show, they took all their stuff, or a lot of their stuff, from music hall and vaudeville. So the history of comedy is one where it's built upon the shoulders of other giants. And so the comedy that you see today is influenced by what some people would say is old-fashioned, unfunny comedy. But it's all been influenced by the great comedians that came before.
Yeah, we living nowadays in a world full of problems, full of depression, full of stress, mental illness, etc. Do you think comedy has a role in these situations? What do you think comedy will do to try to change the paradigms? Is there any role that comedy plays in this situation, these whole situations?
I think comedy helps give you a different perspective. One of the tools in the hidden tools of comedy is the tool of perception. That the way that a character perceives something can be funny. If in the most obvious case, if you have two guys living with each other, and one of them begins to act like the wife, even though he's just another guy, that describes the movie and the play The Odd Couple, where the neat guy, the guy who's very fastidious, starts to act like the sloppy guy's wife, and the guy, sloppy guy comes home, and the neat guy meets him at the door with a kind of an apron on, a frilly apron, and it says, "Where were you? The roast is burnt." And so you look at that and you say, this guy is treating him as though they're married. And that's a way of perception. And a lot of comedy is about seeing things from a different perspective. When you're a fish, you don't notice the water, which is why so many outsiders are so good at comedy, because they might be swimming in the water, but they also see the water around them, and they're able to comment on it. So one of the great things about comedy is that it helps give the audience a different perspective. Here's an example. In the United States, there was 80% or 85% of everybody polled back in the 80s was against same-sex marriage. That was horrible. You couldn't do that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
And then there came this comedy on television, Will and Grace, about a straight woman who is friends with a gay guy, and the gay guy's crazy best friend. And that was a very successful sitcom. And all of a sudden, people's perception started to change. They're not horrible. They're not trying to change, they're not trying to ruin our world. They're not trying to make things terrible. They're just people who love other people. And so in that way, better than a strident polemic, better than an editorial, better than somebody waving their finger and lecturing you, comedy changed the entire perception of the country, so that, oh yeah, sure they should marry. So that's an example of comedy making things better, changing things for the better in a tense and troubled world.
I know you might have answered actually previously about this question we're going to do now, but
Okay.
just to clarify, I was going to ask you about the difference between the comedy. If you analyze the comedy in the modern times, looking to the past, to how it all possibly started, do you find any difference between these during the eras? Do you think we're lacking something in the process in the modern times, or we are evolving?
Well, I what's funny is that comedy from the earliest Greek times is very similar to comedy today. It was all about husbands and wives, lovers. Now, in Greek times, it was about masters and slaves. We don't have slaves, but we have bosses and employees, right?
Yeah.
So they're not slaves, but some of that power differential is still there. And so a lot of the concerns that you see in early comedy are still here today. The difference is that we've evolved the audience so that the modern comedy doesn't have to spell things out so literally and pedantically, because audiences are already, they've seen MTV, they've seen videos, and we can make things go faster. Yeah. So what's really changed more than the comedy, well, there's two things. One is that the audience has we've trained the audience to know what we're doing and where the jokes are, and to kind of keep up with the fact that that there could be a lot packed into a little container.
Mm-hmm.
In the old comedy, you had to set something up, develop it, pay it off, punchline, that was it. But if you look at something like The Simpsons, the Simpsons animated comedy.
Yes, yeah.
In a 10-second clip, there's 25 things that are happening that are funny.
Mm.
And so back 100 years ago, that would be people would be able to follow it. But today, with DVRs, you can watch it, and then you can watch it again and say, oh, I missed that one. That was funny. The other thing is that way back, and for 2,000 years, there was a sharp distinction between comedy and tragedy, comedy and drama. You should never mix those, ever, they thought. And today, I think the big evolution is that you can have both at the same time. Maybe not at the same time, but both in the same story. In fact, I can't think of a good comedy that doesn't have a serious element to it. Whereas I can think of many dramas that don't have a lick of humor in there. I just saw a drama about a coming of age drama about a kid who lived in my neighborhood, Fresh Meadow, Queens, who went to my elementary school, PS 173. That's what the movie was about. I'm sitting there going, that's my elementary school. Yeah. There wasn't one funny element. There wasn't one humorous element. There was no whiff of comedy in the entire story. And I turn to my wife and I say, I lived with those people. There wasn't one funny thing that happened. You didn't have an uncle who belched one time, who got too drunk at it. So for me, comedy tells the truth, and specifically comedy tells the truth about human beings.
So looking to the fact that as a comedian, sometimes you need to make people smile. Do you consider yourself a smiling person? And do you think being a happy person is the key to be a comedian? I'm just here think about the Chaplin, for example. Let's say the idea that he brings to the audience. Do you think you're a smiling person, and do you think being happy is the key to be a better comedian?
In fact, I don't think so. I think that Chaplin grew up in horrible, grinding poverty. And I think comedy was a way of giving him more power. Because I think comedians love the idea that they can do something or say something and 1,000 people are going to react. I mean, that's powerful. So I think it comes from a combination. Now, this is, again, there are many comedians who had happy childhoods, who are totally healthy, they're not neurotic. But as Ray Romano, who is an American stand-up comedian, once said, if I had been hugged once as a child, I would have been an accountant. So a lot of comedians are doing it because they need the affirmation. They're not smiling people. They need the smiling people. They need that love and affirmation that the audience gives you. Imagine you're a dramatic actor and you're in a play and you're doing the story for 2 hours, and then at the end of the 2 hours you get some applause. Comedians are more hungry than that. They're hungrier than that. They want that affirmation now. I'm going to say something to you. I want to affect you now. So I think in a way, we're children who want to be loved, and one way that we figured out how to do it is to make people laugh. Because when they're laughing, they're not hitting us.
Yeah.
Like our dads used to do.
But But is there any limit for comedy? Well, I'm asking this because I'm just imagining a room full of an audience. And if you're standing there for 1 hour without making someone smiling, do you think it's something to worry about? Or you just worry about the impact that might that your word might have to that to that audience? Do you think it's complicated to be 1 hour standing in front of an audience without making someone smile? And can you talk a little bit about the limits, if there is any limit for comedy?
I'm not sure I understood. Do you mean standing in front of an audience for an hour and they don't smile, they don't laugh?
Yeah, yeah. I was asking if that's
that happens.
Okay.
It's called bombing, and it's the worst feeling in the world, but also something that you have to get through in order to get to the other side. If you're an athlete, sometimes losing helps you become a better athlete than winning. So yes, you can stand in front of an audience, maybe not for an hour, because if they're not laughing after 30 minutes, maybe they cut the set short. But I know many people who have done sets and they got nothing. People hated them. What can you do? You try to do better the next time. You try to connect with the audience better the next time. The only limit to comedy is.
But it's that easy to recover from that trauma, if we can call that trauma. If you stand 1 hour without a person smiling, is that easy to recover from that? If you have, for example,
if you don't recover from that, you're not a comedian. Okay. If you don't recover, I mean, if you're a soccer player and you have an open goal and you kick the ball and the ball goes anywhere but the net, do you quit? No. How do you feel? You feel terrible. Yeah. But do you quit? No, you figure I'm going to do better the next time, or else the coach benches you, and you never play again. Yeah. So you have to know that failing is part of it, because failing is a human condition. Yeah. We all fail. There isn't one human being alive who has never failed. Even Alexander the Great failed. He didn't conquer the world. He came up short. So failing for a comedian is like basic training. And the limits of comedy is that comedy needs to make things better. You can't, although there are comedians who have made fun of people without power, powerless people. Yes. It's happened. I mean, there was a comedian in the States, Andrew Dice Clay, who used to make fun of immigrants. And he was very popular for a time. Well, full of angry young white men who loved the fact that he was making fun of immigrants. But his career didn't last, because ultimately you have to, there's a kind of a rule of thumb. You have to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Comedy is about punching up, not punching down. You want to tell truth to power. You don't want to make fun of somebody who's having a hard time already. Yeah. So what's the limit of comedy? You shouldn't make fun of somebody who's suffering, but you can find humor almost anywhere. So one of the most famous episodes in sitcom history is this episode from this show called Mary Tyler Moore, where they were television news people, and a clown died because he was dressed as a peanut and an elephant shelled him. And so everybody's laughing at this, except for Mary, who's going, "That's not funny. That's not funny." Yeah. And then at the funeral, the pastor says, "We want to remember Chuckles, because he was a great clown. He was a peanut, a little seltzer in the face," and everybody else is crying, and Mary starts laughing because all of a sudden she gets the joke. And are we making fun of the guy who died? No. What we're making fun of is the living's reaction and the various reactions we have to funerals, to people dying. So you want to make sure that the focus of your comedy is not on making fun of somebody who shouldn't be made fun of, but shedding a light on human behavior that is funny, is ridiculous, and is okay. And because it's okay, it's part of the human story. It's part of the human behavior.
No, that's great. I know you teach comedy. I was going to ask you, what is the meaning of teaching comedy? What are you willing to achieve? Are you thinking about passing the baton, or are you trying to create a new agents so they could build a smiler world? What is the real goal of this whole process?
I mean, the goal is there are people who are writing scripts, writing pilots, and they struggle with comedy. And again, because people say, well, you just have to know it, you have to be born funny. So the course, I teach two courses. One is the Comedy Intensive Online, which is focused on the hidden tools, and that gives people usable, practical tools to take scenes that they wrote that might not be working and to make them work and make them more comedic. And then I teach a course called Write Your Comic Screenplay, which is helping people take an idea. A guy wakes up and it's the same day every day, and then help them take that idea and develop it into a short treatment, which is the step before you turn it into a script. So I do both. I used to teach a lot of these workshops in person, and then this thing called the pandemic happened. I don't know whether you've heard of it.
There's no way I called it. We heard about that. We felt actually. You might have heard a rumor about it. And so now I'm doing a lot online. So I teach it on Zoom like this, and people can find out about it by going to my website, which is kaplancomedy.com. So are you okay? Are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay. So I was going to ask you about improv. How do you analyze improvisation in comedy?
Well, improv is a very valuable tool, even if you're not a performer. I encourage writers to take improv classes because improv teaches you to think like a character, see like a character, listen like a character, and speak like a character. And so if you're a writer, it's very essential that you get out of your own head and put yourself in the head of the character. Literally seeing the world, the way the character sees the world, what we call worldview. And improv is very valuable because it allows the actor to express what's in the character's mind. And in some movies and with some directors, they use improv a lot in order to get the best they can from the performer. You've hired a talented comedic actor. Well, the talented comedic actor isn't just somebody who can parrot the lines that are written for him. Maybe he could think of a better line. I'm a director, a theater director, and many times I've been in a rehearsal where the line the playwright gave us is good, but the talented actor who's playing the character comes up with a better one. And so you want to avail yourself of the talents of a great comedic actor, because remember, a comedic actor is somebody who sees the world in kind of a comedic way. They have a different perspective, and so they might add something that isn't already there.
Now, I might confess that I'm loving these lessons. But now, can you tell us about? Can you talk about your career, the hardships, the times you thought about quitting, and what are the biggest inspiration in this world of comedy?
Well, I started out as a young theater director, and then two actor friends of mine wanted to start a small theater in New York. And at the time, they only wanted to do it because they were tired of not getting cast in plays. They wanted to be cast in plays. So when we were talking about what kind of theater we wanted to start, I pitched them a theater completely devoted to comedy, because that was my fascination, that was my obsession.
Yeah.
And it ran for 13 years. It was called Manhattan Punchline. A lot of great people came out of it, like David Crane, who went on to do Friends, a little thing called Friends. Peter Tolan, who wrote for the Gary Shandling show. A lot of great people, a lot of great writers. But it was not for profit. It was off of Broadway, and we didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't have big backers. And after 13 years, we had to close it because we ran out of money, and that was painful. But I then decided, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to come to Los Angeles and see if my work in comedy can help me, maybe I can get a job. And so what came out of that was I was doing some development work for a company, and a guy who had worked with Robert McKee, who does a famous screenwriting course all over the world, came to me and said, why don't you do the same thing Robert McKee does, but for comedy? I said, really? Okay. And so many years later, I've been all around the world. So, I guess the lesson is you're going to have hardships, you're going to be kicked and knocked down, but it's up to you to get up again. Because, yes, it hurts, but as the comedian says, you'll be okay. It's not so bad. You'll be okay. And so I was able to find another career, just writing about comedy and teaching comedy. And I've written 2 books. My second book is the Comic Hero's Journey, which talks about story structure in comedy films. And now this is the pinnacle of my career, talking to you, Sergio.
No, the pleasure it's mine.
This is the highest I can ever achieve.
No, the pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for bringing us this privilege, this opportunity. It was amazing to hear you and to have these lessons. We hope to have you in the next episodes, in the next opportunities of Shots.
I would love that.
Yeah. Wish you a great day.
You too. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Doing comedy is not only about making people laugh. What a lesson we had today with Steve Kaplan, expert on comedy for more than 15 years. It was a pleasure to have you there. We felt your presence. We hope to have you in the next episodes of Shots of Legends. And don't forget to laugh. See you in the next episode.